because obviously if we're speaking about the program, right, is it our women? Probably not. So they're not given the grace, I would say, or the virtue to, or the credit to hold what they hold, and then deal with the madness. Like I was thinking about the other day, I was like, yo, you lot hold, because we're just wired differently, right? We don't think about things the same way or feel about things the same way they do.
Do you think it's
Uh,
because of the fact that we've been shut off from
yeah,
how we feel,
yeah.
or do you think it's more
I think
because they're just women and we're just men?
I think we process differently because I was listening to something on BBC yesterday in the car and it was like, oh, why don't men cry? And the guy was like, well, I didn't feel to cry. I wasn't there. Do you get what I'm saying? And it's like, we're getting judged because we process differently. From what I observe, um, a lot of women are super connected to ground source, right? Mother Earth. So they're feeling everything, the shifts and da 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 da. And our heads are up in the clouds. Do you get what I'm saying? Thinking. They're feeling, we're thinking. Um, so yeah, I think on in that it can be perceived as confusion and chaos. But then I'm like, okay, where did they get that from? Because like often, um, I'm seeing like there is a miscommunication basically, and it's about them aiding us to see ourselves and vice versa. But we don't recognize. So as soon as we don't recognize, like if I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying, I judge it and then I shut you out. But that is meant to take me in. But in essence, we're meant to be able to healthily communicate for you to go, look in. Often the narrative is about being better than. So, you seeing it, it's like a tennis game. And you have, at one moment, men, I want to be better than these women or bitches, as they say. And then women call them same thing. The women will be like, oh well, we're more important than men because we have babies, and then these guys are dogs and all this kind of stuff.
It doesn't even make
And
sense.
that's what I'm saying. It's like, for me, there needs to be, and something I'm learning at the moment around boundaries is important to learn about how we express our boundaries and how we communicate them without taking it too personally when it is personal. Do you know what I mean? Like, so your intention can be like, oh, I wanted to really support my partner or whatever it is, but then they'll be like, but it doesn't matter about your intention because I still felt this way. You're like, oh, and that's where compassion now comes in, because you've got to feel that in compassion. Like, you know what? Based on our understanding of what this thing is, I'm sorry. And that's all they really kind of want. To then, okay, based on that, let's collapse that. Let's move into a space of, okay, so how do we build from here? Um, and that is just in different forms. Like, for me, it in my mind, we can't do nothing without women, and women can't do nothing without us. So there always has to have that balance in my mind. I might be wrong, but when I go connect to myself, I'm like, this thing can't work unless both of us are on the same page of, growth beyond us as a.
Sorry, bro. And it just kills the who's more important argument, because none of us would have gotten here without a woman and a man. So, who's more important? Both of us are as important as each other. And obviously, if it takes a man and a woman to bring life into this world, you can't really highlight one of them. You've got to highlight both of them. And I would think that there isn't really a argument or a discussion to have. And it goes back into what I said about, are you seeing it as it is, or are you seeing it as you are, and who have you been programmed to be?
And that's a beautiful thing to unpack, and I think it's something which we should, as people, unpack, which is like, what's the beauty in what you see in the opposite sex, or even in yourself? We could start with yourself first and then go into, because I always hear people saying, oh, the problem with men, the problem. What's the beauty in men? what's the beauty in women? We don't even change the
narrative.
whole narrative,
Change the
because
narrative.
if we can identify just even small things that we can see in and are masculine and feminine, and we can work with that, that's where we can grow. Because what we're identifying now, which is necessary as well, is the problems, is the viruses, but no one isn't given the medicine to get out yet. And it's the counter. You're gonna have the poison. You're gonna identify the poison, the viruses, the disease, the dis-ease.
Who's talking through you? What's talking through you? And that's when it gets spooky, because people think that it's them. It's not them. If your narrative is a destructive one, because look, we can all acknowledge the wrongs. We can all acknowledge the virus. But if we're not acknowledging the pros, and all we're doing is acknowledging the cons, that shows you what's going on. Because when we think about the Western world and we think about white media, it's always negative. It's negative with a pinch of positive.
And that, for me, and you can see it if we sit down and say to you, okay, let's sit down, have a shared vision and build. It's a real struggle for many of us to do that, because we're so indoctrinated to live in a deathly and dark way, and so
Sorry, bro. It's mad. It's mad because when I'm having conversations with the man them or whoever, bro, man ain't really talking about women like they're precious. Do you get what I mean? This is why, like, it's so important that we have knowledge of self. As I said, the white man will never give us knowledge of self, because once we have that, we get to see it for what it actually is. There are more pros about women than there is cons. And if you're looking at the cons, you've got to look at how they got the cons.
even with this, that the kind of, even if you're looking at a woman and saying, you know, I don't like this woman, or she's self-destructive, or there's, even in that, even the way they communicate, there's so much pros, there's so much learning that can happen. Because when I'm looking at African history, the women were the whisperers of wisdom, right? And then the men went out and there was an order, a natural order, where it was like balance, as they call it. So for me, I've had some of my greatest learnings from women, like, and that doesn't require language as well. The embodiment of like healthy, resilient conversation, like emotional intelligence, emotional resilience, have come from the women in my life. Obviously, I've had different mothers, so I've had 3 different mothers with 3 different experiences, who all taught me like different forms of love, which is beautiful, man, and the embodiment of that. And then I've had different women just kind of help me see the mirror of who I am. And something I appreciate is the way women hold space for men. They feel with you, and it's probably why, just observation, I might be wrong as well, I don't think we do the same, in terms of, and I'm just talking about observing, I'm not saying myself personally, but when I'm seeing how men, when a woman's losing it in the chaos, there's that level of like, we just need to be there, we don't need to fix it, just need to,
It's a process.
it's hold space. Do you get what I'm saying? Let them figure it out. You're just there to hold them so that they feel nurtured and protected too. Do you get what I'm saying? I find that when women go into chaos, that we kind of just left them to it. And I've been there. I've done that myself, so I kind of get it. But I realize how important it is in reflection to just work through that, hold the space, and then everything starts to kind of settle. Do you know what I mean? But
And this is the thing, she's not mad. She's not mad. It's what's within her that's mad. It's what's within all of us that's mad. Once again, it's how do you see it? How do you see her? We're both victims of this vicious programming. She's not responsible. You're not responsible. Who's responsible? and it's who you lot don't really want to acknowledge. Because if you acknowledge it, your whole existence gets flipped upside down, and you have to start looking at, oh shit, okay, what is an issue here? And a lot of the stuff that's in our lives, that we have in our lives, are big issues.